Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cow Talks. I am Marcelo, Wallau Forage Extension Specialist with the University of Florida and an agricultural producer myself. On this podcast, we explore the many facets of agricultural production systems to discuss the technical aspects and decision-making processes that shape the competitiveness and long-term sustainability of our farms and ranches. Join me in these conversations where I explore the minds of different professionals to bring multiple perspectives to the challenges and opportunities facing modern agriculture.
Hey there, it's Olivia Mull. I'm the producer for Cow Talks. As part of the Forage Extension team, our number one goal is to make sure our listeners are learning from and applying the knowledge we bring on this podcast. We want to hear more about how you are using this information and get your feedback on current and future topics. That's why we have created a quick survey to hear from you and make this podcast even more relevant to your needs. The link is in the description. Please take 2 minutes to leave us your feedback. Thanks in advance and enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to Cow Talks. I'm Marcelo, Wallau Forage Extension Specialist with the University of Florida. And today I have a special guest and friend here, Bruno Pedreira, my counterpart in Tennessee, Director of the Beef and Forage Center with the University of Tennessee and Extension Specialist in Forages. Bruno and I have been talking a lot about what is going on recently in the whole Southeast about this drought and what we can do. And I thought it would be very interesting to bring this conversation to you, our listeners, looking into what is happening now, what led to this situation we are now, and what's the perspective for the next growing season and maybe even for the seasons to come. Bruno, welcome.
Well, thank you, Marcelo. Thanks for having me here. It's my first time here on the Cow Talks. Glad to be here.
I've been getting a lot more questions about what is going on with the drought, what can we do in terms of management. And I want to explore with you here because this is not a Florida problem. This is a Southeast problem. This is a Southern United States problem. I'm going to start this conversation here with bringing some numbers to us. Let me just share the screen for those folks that are watching us, for those folks that are only listening to us on Spotify and don't have the capacity to take a look at the videos, maybe check YouTube or even access the Drought Monitor. I'm going to show some of the graphs that are coming from the Drought Monitor. When we look into the whole United States, about 60% of the country here is in some type of drought. So it's a large area. And when we look into the southeastern region, south and southeastern region, there is a lot of drought there. I selected here just for us to take a look into the southeastern states here, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, the two Carolinas, and Virginia. And you can see that there's a huge area where we are in exceptional drought or extreme drought. So those are the D4 and then the 3 categories of the Drought Monitor that really means things are getting very bad.
It's important to highlight, Marcelo, on that graph that there is not a single county that is not in drought, right? Every single county in from North Carolina to Florida, including Tennessee on this conversation, they are in some source of drought right now.
Yep. Here's the map for Tennessee, and we're looking into about 44% of it is in D3 or D4, but virtually the whole state has some type of drought. When we look into Florida, especially North Florida, in the Florida Panhandle, a big chunk of that is in D4, exceptionally dry. So this is triggering also some USDA designation of disaster here because of the extent of this drought. And another thing I want to show you here, Bruno, is that this is not new. When we look into about a year ago, pretty much 93% of the state was already on drought. When we think about 3 months to current, or the calendar year to current, or even before, thinking about sometime like in September, we have been extremely dry in the state.
Really bad numbers, right? I think that's the reason we are here today, because we are concerned with our livestock producers and how they are dealing with all of this. And Marcelo, every time I'm talking about drought with producers, I like to remember then that as a livestock producer myself, and I know you are as well, we are a people of faith. We have the faith that rain is coming, right? That the weather is going to be better tomorrow than it was today, that the next season is going to be better than the last one was. And probably that's the worst mistake we can make when we are keeping with that mindset that tomorrow is going to be better, which is good. We need that to live life. But when we are thinking about perennial pastures, right? When we're thinking about perennial forages, we cannot keep overgrazing them and stress them even more when we are already in a drought situation. So I think my first advice to our fellow farmers here is like, this is the time that you need to get rid of the animals that you don't really need, right? If you have cool cows, if you have any kind of animals that they are not productive animals. How about bulls, right? How many bulls do you have? How many bulls do you really need? I think that's the kind of the time that when we come together to go and look at all the animals and figure out which ones really needs to stay in the property. If you cannot screen that, and sometimes we already did it, especially in your case in Florida, you show data that, in the last full year, you have been through this. Here in Tennessee, it's not that bad. We have been going through this more in the last 3 or 4 months. I think since January this year, we did got a little bit of snow in parts of the state. We got another half inch to an inch, depending on the region you are, like a week ago. But I think that's the time of the year to go through the herd and identify those animals. Maybe animals that have problems, animals that you have in mind that, maybe behavior or conformation, something that for some reason you ended up keeping that animal. Maybe that's the time to reduce the amount of forage you need, because we are not producing the forage we need right now.
And this is a very good moment in terms of market to get rid of those animals.
Oh, yeah.
And we discussed that not long ago with different colleagues in this podcast, from economists to other scientists, forage scientists. Prices are good. Now is the good time to get rid, so we can get a little bit of that balance back of forage production. I always say, sacrifice part of the pasture, don't sacrifice the whole pasture, in terms of when we're thinking about grazing management in the spring transition. And here's the time that we cannot sacrifice the whole herd. Maybe get rid of some. Bruno, you mentioned some of the rain you got up in Tennessee, and a little bit of growth during the winter. You were in the transition zone. You are in fescue country. That is completely foreign for us. But I think we're in a very similar situation here, because we did not have that own set of growth now in the spring off our warm season perennial. So the pasture growth are delayed. But I want to go back a little bit. I want to think about August last year. Or July. We had a lot of rain July last year in general in Florida, and then it turned out very dry in August. And in September, we got a little bit of rain in October. Actually, it was a little better than average. I got excited about it. I thought, okay, this is going to be a good season, and it stopped raining. So we did not cut the amount of hay we normally did. We could not stockpile forages in the end of the summer to use during that fall. So 3 strikes. And then we did not get a chance of planting those cool season annual forages that we normally do in the winter. And for those that planted, they just didn't come. So it became one more expense. So strike 3. And now we're excited to get out of the winter. It was a very hard winter, very dry and very cold winter. We got a little bit of rain in March, and then it stopped again. In our property, April now, we got 0.14 inches of rain. And even some other places here around us that got more rain, that got inch and a half of rain, that was not sufficient to replenish that negative balance that we had from the months before. So strike number 4, we now don't have water to get the pasture, the spring green up going. We don't have any pasture now. So I know you have a similar mindset than I do. Diversification, more forages, more options. But now we're out of 4 options here, and all of those failed.
As I mentioned in the very first beginning here, right? It's not a good topic to talk about it, because we really do not have much what to do other than reduce your stocking rates if you can, as much as you can. And again, as a livestock producer myself, that's one of the things that we always talk at home. We're not here to get rid of animals, right? We're here to gather them and to have more. That's the goal in the end of the day. But we got to pencil it out. If we cannot get good numbers out of these animals, we cannot be feeding them right now. I already have a few producers in Tennessee that are still feeding hay, not much, but growth has not been as we expected. So even having a little bit of green grass that we still have right now, that in some parts of the state, I do have producers that are keeping feeding hay. And that's something that you can do, right? If you still have some in the stock. We already feed hay in Tennessee for 140 days on average. So probably this year is going to be longer than that. And if you have hay in the stocks, I think that's something that's smart, right? You don't want to be overgrazing those fescues. I don't see any Bermudan crabgrass getting out yet. They are very tiny in the field still. But I And I don't expect the fescue to be as productive as they used to be. And that's the fescue season for us, right? March, April, May is the peak of the fescue growth. If we cannot get it now, absolutely our grazing season, it will be compromised. There is no way we are going to get what we used to get. And what I'm concerned the most, Marcelo, is what's coming. Knowing that we are overgrazing right now, and knowing that we won't produce the amount of hay we should be producing the hay we'll need in December, right? So prices probably, they're going to be driving up. Probably we need to be more cautious this year when we're buying hay, making sure that you are buying good quality hay if you can find it, and stock it, because I do not know how it's going to be the hay offer in the market. I don't know how much hay we're going to be finding in the next few weeks if we keep with the powder we have right now.
Yeah, same here. Instead of the fescue, we're right in the transition between that cool season for any forage that we normally have, or in many systems we have, and the warm season perennials should be growing. There is no growth. And this is something that worries me, Bruno. A lot of our farmers are still trying to use some of that. They have cows in those pastures. And what I'm seeing a lot is because it gets so dry and the animals are still in the pastures, the soil, remember, we have a very, very, very sandy soil. That's very dry and sandy soil get loose. Animals are just pulling those plants.
Oh, yeah.
Uprooting them. So that is really big. I'm curious to see what is going to be the effect of this spring drought on our Bahia grass, because I'm seeing a lot of damage to those pastures. Hopefully there is a bit of seed bank there that can recover. And that's when I made that comment a little while back of sacrifice part of the pasture, don't sacrifice the whole pasture, is get those animals out of the pasture, put them in a corner, put it somewhere, feed hay there. It's going to be cheaper than trying to recover the whole pasture. Don't try to use that little bit of forage that there is, because it's going to degrade that pasture.
Yeah, it's important to mention that when we go through a drought like this, and I always like to use the analogy that what's going on above ground is also going on underground, right? So if we cannot grow a beautiful and tall canopy, we cannot have a beautiful root system as well. So those roots are shrinking right now, especially in sandy soils, as you guys have in Florida. We do have some sandy soils here in Tennessee as well, but not as sandy box as you guys have there, right? It's in Florida is different. But yes, we will be pulling those plants. We will be killing some of this. And the longer is the drought, the higher is the impact on the stand population, right? We are losing tillers. So we are having a stand that's going to be thinner than it was last year. So if we can get back, especially here in my world, in the fescue country, if we can get to the next fall and if we have some moisture, I would highly encourage our farmers here to be prepared to overseed some of those pastures. We really need to make sure that we will keep those stands as they used to be, and checking on those pastures in August or September when they start to green up again to that fall growth that we used to have in this upper southern U.S. It's going to be important to make those pastures stickier again and make sure that we can go through the winter if things change. Right?
I keep thinking about what is going to be the situation in the summer. For us, Bruno, in Florida, traditionally, April and May are the driest months here. April and May, and then October, November are going to be the driest months of the year. And we're already dry and already in a drought. So I don't foresee, even with the prediction, with the forecast of El Nino here, which is telling us the next El Nino phase now, a little bit more precipitation, above normal precipitation for the next couple 3 months in the 3-month outlook. Those are normally dry, so a little bit above doesn't mean a lot of rain. And we need a lot of rain to recover the water status. So I don't see our pastures recovering anywhere before mid-June. And when they start recovering, it's going to be a little bit before we can really use them. It might be July before we really can get some good forage growth in our pastures that can get us out of the situation we are.
Yeah, if that happens, and I agree with you, that's exactly what I've been kind of reading as well and monitoring from the USDA portal there. We have 65% chance of getting into El Nino. For Tennesseans here, it means that we are going to have a cooler, a wetter growing season, so it's good. June and July used to be our lowest precipitation month as well. And I think the forecast says that from May to July, we should turn into El Nino. If it happens, we will probably be able to still grow some of the warm season plants we have it, which is a concern of mine at this point, because in Tennessee, we have been moving so much towards fescue. We don't have as many acres of Bermuda as we used to have in the past. Crabgrass has been coming in a little bit. We can see some sorghum and sudax here and there, but I would say that we are still like in 85% FESC, right? So even if the rainfall shifts a little bit, I don't know how much warm season grasses we have here to help us to make through the summer and get to the next fall. So I would be really concerned and try to be conservative and use that forage very cautious from now on. Again, try to get rid of the animals you don't need. I would not acquire new animals. I will try to keep wherever I have to make sure that we will make through this summer in better shape than where we are right now.
So thinking about an outlook, you were telling me that hopefully you can get a little bit of annual forages growing on in the summer and then get that FESC recover, because you said you have a second peak of FESC growth in the fall of the year.
Yeah.
For us, the situation is a little bit different because the peak of growth is going to be the summer, June, July, August, then go down in September. And if we don't get this rain until mid-June and growth in early July, we're really not going to see a lot of growth that allow us to stockpile forage or to cut any hay. I'm thinking about hay supply here is going to be pretty short this year. Some people that normally cut cool season hay also were not able to. So I think for next year we're going to see very high prices. For reference, we're buying what they call here cow hay. So that's Bahia grass, not very high quality hay. For $55, $65. I'm glad to see that actually producers are helping each other. They have not really spiked the price of hay because the shortfall, but there is a shortfall. Mm-hmm. But we see the community coming together to help each other. This crisis is not going to alleviate within this, probably not within this calendar year. And then comes fall. Hopefully we can have a moist fall with the El Nino phase that allow us to plant some of those cool season annual forages and alleviate the situation a little bit here.
Yeah. I think especially on the hay side, Marcelo, as you just mentioned, if we're going to be feeding hay from now on, I'll be paying attention to how I'm doing this. I know we have a lot of people unrolling hay, and that's something that we have a lot of discussion, and it's kind of a controversial point. I think my point for this kind of scenario is I don't want to lose a single leaf, right? I want to be able to use that hay or either using device. So if you like to unroll hay, unroll as much as you think is going to be needed for that day or for that, whatever is the period that you're doing. If you're unrolling hay every 2 days, 3 days, try to reduce your losses as much as possible. That's the time that we can use every and any resource to the best of our capacity.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of hay unrolling here in Florida, maybe because we don't have hills. It gets to be a little harder to unroll.
Yeah,
but it is a technique that there is a lot of controversy, and most of the research is showing that the loss in hay is tremendous. It's really not a very good strategy in terms of efficiency of feeding. Other reasons you might want to do that's fine, but in terms of efficiency of feeding is not very good strategy. I'm a big proponent of the rotation of the feeding site across the pasture, especially, for example, if a Bahia grass pasture dormant in the winter and you are rotating that feeding site through the winter so you can spread that nutrient from feces all across, but at the same time you don't have a heavy impact in one side. Well, things are a little bit different now. Because the ground is so dry, any place you put that hay and that the animals are concentrating is going to damage that pasture. So more than ever now, I'm very strong about the sacrifice area. Move a sacrifice area, sacrifice part of our pasture. Don't sacrifice all. Remove the animals off of the pasture, especially now in this transition phase when it's trying to grow and it's not doing much.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you consider on that to stretch the hay as well is to consider commodity feeds, right?
Perfect.
So if you're close to some place that you have access to soybean hulls, corn gluten, dry distillers grain, wherever you have around you. That's the time of the year we need to be creative. We know that the hay supply is not that good, that we may be short on our stocks because we're not getting to the winter, right? We are getting out of the winter. We would be expecting the grass to be green and growing outside, and it's not happening. So what kind of supplement with the commodity feed you have around you? Go find it. I'll try to get some to stretch the hay you have right now.
Yeah, that was the next topic I was going to ask you about it. And Quick note here for our listeners, please engage with your local extension agent to learn more about how to use those commodities, because you need to put together a diet for that animal and you need to be conscious about what they're feeding. Hay is very expensive in terms of nutrients because hay, especially our cow hay here, they are very low in nutrients. But they are essential for rumen motility. We really need that hay. We cannot just transition completely to supplement, to concentrate, because our animals are not going to survive. We're going to generate a lot of acidosis and other metabolic problems in there. However, and this is the key, Bruno, I've been talking to a few of our colleagues here and producers. I've been seeing producers. There are many products and byproducts in the market, like you mentioned, soybean hulls or even peanut hulls here, that are high in fiber. And more than that, they're high in fiber digestibility. So that is a very, very good source or byproduct to put in that feed. If you can soybean hulls or peanut hulls and corn gluten meal, for example, or corn gluten feed can form a diet that is balanced. You have that fiber there, you have the protein, you have the energy, but not excessive protein and energy that is going to be wasted, or as we say, that it's just too hot for that animal. So again, the fiber, the hay, or through some other source of fiber byproduct in the byproduct is extremely, extremely important. But that is a very good way that we can save a little bit of that hay.
Yeah, and the sooner you can get into this, the better it will be, right? You cannot be out of hay, and then you're going to find something like this, and you don't have the force you need to balance the ratio. So it's better to go now and look forward. I think the other point that I would like to mention, Marcelo, is that at least for us here, we have like 95% of rain for this weekend. So hopefully we'll get some rain in the next few days. And I know in the situation we are now, we don't really need one rain, right? We don't need an overnight rain. We really need some rain to come and stay and come off in the next few days, so we can change a little bit of all of this redness in the map and bring it back for some white and light orange. I'm always joking here in Tennessee, that's the only orange we don't like to see is in the drought monitor, right? Other than that, we are all in orange here and we like orange all over. But every time my Tennessee map, my southeast map becomes orange, it's not good at all for us to produce good grass.
So I'm trying to get some information here. I'm looking into the NOAA forecast here for Gainesville, for our region, for the next 15 days. And in the forecast, we have a little bit of chance of rain for May 1st and May 3rd, adding to just about half an inch of rain.
Yeah.
So it's really not a lot, and it's too far in the forecast, hard to predict. Those models change, especially when we're thinking about 15 or even 30 days. 30 days forecast is not a lot. But one thing to keep in mind, as you said, Bruno, it's not going to be enough to get us out of the drought. So a little bit of rain, give it a chance to the pasture. Don't use that pasture. Give that rain to the plants, give the plants a chance to recover, because the pasture is going to need that to recover. Don't go ahead and use the little bit of growth that we may see from those little rains.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And if you understand what we are doing, right, that plant that is in stress right now, that plant finds water, they will start to mobilize the rest of the energy they have to try to bring a new leaf out. And if you go there and you take that leaf, how can I survive, right? I'm giving you the very last of my energy to bring back a leaf that will allow me to replace that energy and keep growing. And then you allow the cows to come and graze me. So as a plant of grass in your pasture, I'll be really mad at you. So think about this when you have the next rain. And, I know sometimes we are shorting hay, but you may need to feed hay for a few more days. Allow those plants to come back and replace their energy so they can be there in their pasture with us.
Fantastic, Bruno. It's sad that I bring you here to talk about this topic, but I really appreciate your presence and your expertise to talk about this. And again, this is not a Florida deal. This is a Southeastern deal. All the Southeast states are in this dire moment of drought. And again, it's not going to improve anytime soon. So this season has been a lot of surprise for our farmers. Hopefully we can get better soon and get back in track in terms of production and costs and everything.
Yeah, and as you mentioned a little bit earlier, diversification is the word here, right? If If you only have Bahia grass, if my producers here only have fescue, we are even more exposed to a situation like this. So try to build your forage systems in a way that they will have more resilience. They will. If you have different grasses, imagine it. To me here in Tennessee, if it starts to rain from now on, I may have lost all of my fescue growth, but I may be able to get crabgrass and sudax and Bermuda grass if you have it. But if you don't have it, there is no way. Marcelo, thank you so much for having me here. Hope I can come back another day with a better topic so we can talk about something that makes us a little bit less sad than we are in these last few months with that drought in the whole Southeast U.S.
Yes, thanks a lot, Bruno. And thanks everyone for listening to this podcast or watching our video. We now have our podcast both on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well. Leave us your feedback. If you can take 2 minutes to respond to our survey, check the link for the survey in the description of this podcast. We want to hear from you how you are using this information, what things are important for you, and what else you want to listen into this podcast so we can bring you the most important information to improve your forage and livestock production system in the Southeastern United States. Thanks so much for listening, for joining us, and I hope to see you in the next Cow Talks podcast. This podcast was brought to you by the University of Florida Forage Team with technical support from the UF Cows Faculty Instructional Resources Support Team. This episode was produced by Marcelo Wallau, Olivia Mowley, and Ashley Kalabrowski. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. And if you have any feedback, please leave us a comment in our social media or send us an email to forages@ifas.ufl.edu. Until the next one,